Hey guys, this is FIDE Victor Nestroev, and this is the second video devoted to the best player of all time. Who deserves this title? Please let me know what you think. However, I choose 5 candidates who, in my opinion, deserve this title. They are: first, Emanuel Laskar; second, Bobby Fischer; third, Garry Kasparov; number 4 is Viswanathan Anand; and of course, the fifth, Magnus Carlson. Today I'll tell you about Bobby Fischer, the most known American grandmaster. Is he the best chess player of all time? I'm sure many of you agree with this statement. However, before you take a final decision, let me introduce him and demonstrate his best game he ever played. His full name was Robert James Fischer. He was an American chess grandmaster and the 11th world chess champion. Bobby Fischer was a phenomenon of his day. At the age of 14, he became the youngest ever United States chess champion. And at the age of 15, he became both the youngest grandmaster and the youngest candidate for the World Championship. Fischer won the World Chess Championship in 1972, defeating Boris Spassky from USSR. The match was held in Reykjavik, Iceland. He was preparing for this match and even learned Russian to read chess books published in Soviet Union. That time all new chess books with contemporary theory were released in Russian, and of course only a few of them were translated to English. In this video we are going to observe the game that Bobby played against Boris Spassky in their championship match.
I would like to show you the game between Bobby Fischer and Boris Spassky. In this game, Bobby played with white pieces and actually he was quite good. In my opinion, this is the best game played by Bobby Fischer. Maybe you won't find any sacrifices or long combinations here, but almost every move that Bobby played was the best move. That's why I consider this game to be the best. So c4, Bobby starts with English opening, but then the game was transposed to just an ordinary queen's gambit. Knight f6, knight c3, bishop e7, bishop g5, castle. The position can be approximately equal here. e3, h6, bishop h4, b6. So this is a typical move. That move was quite popular at that time. You can instead play knight bd7, c5 or a6, but this system that was named Makagona-Bondarevskого system was quite popular, and actually even later it was quite popular in Soviet Union and Russia. C takes d5, so e takes d5 here is not a good move. For example, bishop d3, bishop b7, the bishop is quite bad there, castle, knight bd7, rook c1. And here white has the advantage and black has to play for a draw. So knight d5 is the best move. Then bishop e7, queen e7, knight d5, e takes d5. So we traded 2 pairs of minor pieces, rook c1. And here the bishop shouldn't be on b7, it should be on e6, because the main idea is that the bishop controls this diagonal. Queen e4. For example, if something like bishop d3, then c5 could be played soon. That's why queen e4. c5 right now anyway, but the idea of this move was to play queen e3 and to pin the pawn. Rook c8. If in this position we play just an ordinary move like bishop e2, then queen b7, and the c5 pawn is not hanging. For example, d takes c5, b takes c5, rook c5, rook c5, queen c5, queen b2, and black is fine in this position. So he sacrifices the c5 pawn, but gains the pawn on b2, making the a2 a weakness. That's why Bobby Fischer played this move. Now the b2 pawn is not hanging, and if, for example, here queen b7 is played, then d takes c5, b takes c5, rook c5, rook c5, queen c5, so the b2 pawn is not hanging. And if something like that, then bishop goes there, and after queen b2 we can play knight d4. Let's go back. After bishop b5, Boris Spassky played a6, but actually the pawn is pinned, so it's not taken move. D takes c5, b takes c5. These two pawns are called hanging pawns, and actually the idea of having these two pawns is to restrict enemy minor pieces activity. It's better to get such a pawn structure when there are 4 pairs of minor pieces, because then the other side, who plays against hanging pawns, doesn't really have the option to maneuver with his pieces. But with only 2 minor pieces left, it's fine for white. Castle, rook a7, now the bishop is hanging. Bishop goes back, knight d7. Maybe it's a kind of inaccuracy. I was thinking that something like that, offering a queen straight, was a better option, but okay, knight d7. However, the idea of this, the mistake of this move is that it blocks the connection between the a7 rook and queen on e7. That's why knight d4 can be played. Queen f8. Now this knight is hanging. Knight takes e6, f takes e6, and now let's decide what to do. White position is fine, but there is no clear advantage. The bishop can be better than the knight in case if we do what? Of course, in case if we open the position, but how to open the position here? And Bobby Fischer finds this way. He plays e4. Even if d captures e4, he is fine. For example, d captures e4, queen e3, knight f6, then b4. I'm sure he is able to gain the pawn back, and his bishop can be better than the knight on f6. Moreover, you see, by playing e4, we also ruin the pawn structure of black. However, maybe it was a good option for black to capture. Maybe instead knight f6 could make sense, but Boris Spassky plays definitely a bad move. He plays d4. And what do you think Bobby Fischer did? He started the attack on the enemy king with f4. Queen e7, e5, to block the f6 square and open light squares for the bishop. Rook b8, bishop c4, king h8, queen h3, attacking the weakness on e6. Knight f8 to support it. Now the pawn on b2 is hanging, that's why we play b3, a5, and again we continue opening the position to take the advantage of having the bishop versus knight. f5. He has to take, otherwise we play f6 on the next move. E takes f5, rook takes f5. Oh, not queen, but rook takes f5 here. Knight goes to h7. Then white doubles the rooks, threatening to play rook f7 at some point. That's why queen d8, queen g3, rook e7. What to do? Now we are in a critical position. So of course it's obvious that white is better, but if white passes the game into the end game, then maybe the d4 pawn can play the most important role, and one of our pieces can be tied down to that pawn. However, I can also tell you that the knight on h7 is not really doing much, can't go to f8, so the knight is quite bad. The only square it can move to is g5. And this is what Bobby Fischer also noticed, and that's why he realized that he don't really need to hurry, and if he just plays h4 to create an escape square, but with the main idea to attack the g5 and to trap the knight, he could continue successfully playing this position with a huge advantage. Rook b to b7. e6 to create the outpost on f7. Rook bc7, it's difficult to suggest a move for black in this position. Queen e5. Queen e8. a4 to prevent any counterplay on the queen side. So you see, white doesn't really have to hurry. Queen d8. Rook 1 to f2. Queen e8. Rook 2 to f3. Queen d8. So you see, this is how white tries to understand if black has any active plans. But actually no, black has just to stay with his queen or rook. Well, looks like only with the queen, because the c7 rook has to stay there to support the pawn. Bishop d3. And queen e4, another relocation. Now we are threatening with a rook sacrifice, after which we deliver a checkmate. For example, rook e6, rook f8 check, knight takes f8, rook takes a knight, queen takes, and then queen h7 is a checkmate. The only way to save or to delay a checkmate is to play knight f6. But how to continue for white in this position? What do you think? You may pause this video and try to find the solution yourself. Okay, but we continue. Of course, it's obvious that with such passive pieces on e7 and c7, white can allow himself to sacrifice the exchange on f6. G takes f6, rook takes f6. So there are two factors that allowed us to play this sacrifice. Not only passive pieces on the 7th rank, but the weakness of the king, of course. King g8, bishop c4, king h8, and it's difficult to suggest any good move for black. After queen e4, Boris Spassky resigned because there are several threats in this position. For example, rook f8 is one of them. If rook h7, then rook f8. If something like queen g8, then we can just play rook f8 again and the same thing happens. What else can he do? I have no ideas. Maybe he should play such a move to stop rook f8 coming. Yes, I think so. But it's still a bad position. I believe here after queen e5 the game is over. Maybe we should also take on the h6. But I think queen e5 is a stronger option. Okay, so you see, in this game white dominated every move. No, of course, starting after playing the opening. So I think in this position white was already dominating and forced black to defend. So here Bobby Fischer didn't make almost any mistakes, and he found really good plans like e4, opening the position in the center. And when Boris Spassky decided not to open the center because he of course understood that the bishop can be better than the knight, he closes, and then Bobby changes the plan and plays f4 with the idea to start the kingside attack that was finally successful. Okay, thank you for your attention.
In this video you learned about Bobby Fischer, American grandmaster who can be considered as the best chess player of all time according to the opinions of several chess experts. I demonstrated the game that Bobby played against Boris Spassky. Thank you for watching, and make sure to like this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and share it with your friends, chess players. I also would like to ask if you know what else Bobby Fischer designed for chess. Please share your ideas into the comment section below this video. And find the answer later in my next video. I hope you enjoyed this video, and don't miss the next one, where I am going to present the next candidate, Garry Kasparov, and demonstrate his second best game. But if you don't want to wait, please watch the video on the screen next about Emanuel Laskar, who also deserved to claim an official title, the best chess player of all time. Okay, enjoy this next video, and I'll see you there in a moment.